Let's get something straight. When you stay silent, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're making a choice. You're choosing to hand over your power, to let someone else dictate the rules, to allow their behavior to continue without consequence. Silence isn't neutral. Silence is agreement. Silence is submission. See, we like to believe that staying quiet keeps us safe. That if we don't speak up, we won't rock the boat. That if we swallow our words, we'll avoid confrontation. But let me tell you something. When you stay silent in the face of disrespect, injustice, or pain, you're not keeping the peace, you're keeping yourself in chains. Silence doesn't challenge anything. It doesn't create discomfort for the person who's in the wrong. It doesn't force them to reflect, to reconsider, to change. Silence does one thing and one thing only. It makes them comfortable. It reassures them that what they're doing is acceptable, that there are no consequences for their actions, that they can keep treating you the way they always have because at the end of the day, you won't do anything about it. And that right there, that's how patterns are reinforced. That's how cycles continue. That's how people take advantage of your kindness, your patience, your understanding, because they know that no matter how much it hurts you, you won't speak. But here's what most people don't realize. The person on the other side of your silence isn't thinking about how much you're hurting. They're not feeling your frustration. They're not losing sleep over your unspoken pain. Why? Because you're the one carrying it, not them. When you hold back your voice, the only person suffering is you. The only person feeling the weight of that silence is you. The only person who lies awake at night replaying the things they wish they had said is you. And meanwhile, the person who hurt you, disrespected you, ignored you, they sleep just fine. They go about their day. They don't feel the burden of your silence. They don't hear the storm raging inside of you. That's why silence has no impact on them. Because silence doesn't make a statement. Silence doesn't force them to pause and ask, did I do something wrong? Silence doesn't disrupt their reality. It allows them to stay exactly as they are. And I know why you do it. You think that by staying quiet, you're avoiding an argument. You're avoiding conflict. You're keeping the peace. But whose peace are you really keeping? Theirs? Because it sure as hell isn't yours. Your silence does not protect you. It does not keep you safe. It does not shield you from pain. If anything, it deepens it. Because now, on top of everything else, you have to live with the fact that you didn't stand up for yourself, that you didn't demand better, that you didn't use the one thing you have that can shift the dynamic, your voice. Think about all the times you wanted to say something and didn't. Think about all the moments you sat there fuming inside but smiled on the outside. Think about how many times you've walked away from a conversation knowing you should have spoken up but didn't because you were afraid. Afraid of their reaction, afraid of making things worse, afraid of what might happen if you actually said what was on your mind. Now ask yourself this, did your silence make anything better? Did it create change? Did it get you the respect you deserved? No, because silence doesn't demand change. Silence doesn't command respect. Silence doesn't alter the course of anything. It just lets everything stay exactly the same. And if you think that one day, somehow, magically, they'll just realize the damage they've done, that they'll wake up and see how much they've hurt you without you ever saying a word, let me tell you something, they won't. People don't read minds. They respond to actions. They respond to words. They respond to consequences. If you want someone to feel the weight of what they've done, you have to make them hear it. You have to make them face it. You have to stop thinking that silence is some kind of moral high ground, some form of quiet strength, because in reality, all it's doing is giving them exactly what they want, your compliance. And the longer you stay silent, the harder it becomes to break out of it. The more you let things slide, the more you convince yourself that speaking up won't change anything, the more you tell yourself that it's not worth the fight, the more you shrink, the more you lose yourself, the more you train yourself to accept less than you deserve. It starts small. One moment of silence. One time you let something go. One day you tell yourself it's not a big deal. Then another and another, until suddenly you don't recognize yourself anymore. Until one day you wake up and realize you have spent years biting your tongue, years making yourself smaller, years carrying the weight of things you never should have carried. And for what? Because here's the truth. Silence is the easy choice. Speaking up is hard. Using your voice takes courage. But the alternative? The alternative is a life where you are invisible, a life where you are unheard, a life where the people around you continue to act however they please because they know no matter what they do, you won't say a word. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly used your voice? Not just to talk, not just to make conversation, but to stand up, to declare, to demand something that mattered. Because whether you realize it or not, your voice is the most powerful weapon you have. It is the one thing that can shift the direction of a conversation, the one thing that can break a pattern, the one thing that can force a reaction, but only if you use it. See, most people don't speak up because they don't believe their words hold weight. They think, what's the point? It won't change anything. No one will listen. And that belief keeps them trapped. That belief convinces them to stay small. That belief silences them before they even try. But let me tell you something. History was not changed by silence. Movements did not start because people kept their thoughts to themselves. Injustice was not corrected because people hoped things would get better. No. Change happens when people speak, when they refuse to stay quiet, when they decide that their voice matters more than their fear. Because fear is what stops most people. Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of being misunderstood, ignored, dismissed. But you have to understand something. The moment you let fear control your voice, you give your power away. You hand it over to the people who are perfectly fine with things staying exactly as they are. And if you don't use your voice, someone else will use theirs to define your reality for you. Think about that for a second. If you don't stand up and say, this is what I want, someone else will tell you what you can have. If you don't say this is not okay, someone else will decide what is okay for you. If you don't say this is who I am, someone else will shape your identity for you. And you'll find yourself living in a world that doesn't reflect who you are, what you need, or what you deserve, all because you didn't speak up. Your voice is how you claim your space in this world. It is how you assert your needs. It is how you tell people, I exist, I matter, and you will acknowledge me. But you know what happens when you don't use your voice? You fade. You become invisible. You become easy to overlook, easy to ignore, easy to walk over, because you've never made it clear that you won't allow it. People will only respect boundaries they know exist. And the only way they'll know is if you tell them. Your voice is the line in the sand between being walked on and being respected, between being dismissed and being heard, between being controlled and being free. And I know speaking up isn't always easy. There will be moments when your voice shakes, when the words don't come out perfectly, when your heart is pounding and everything inside you is screaming to back down. But let me tell you something. Your voice doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. It just needs to be used. Because the alternative is silence. And silence keeps you stuck. Silence keeps you frustrated. Silence makes you a spectator in your own life, watching as things happen to you instead of taking control. And here's the thing, people will test you. They will push you. They will see how much they can get away with. They will see if you're the kind of person who lets things slide or if you're the kind of person who demands better. And the only way they'll know is by what you say. So if you don't like the way you're being treated, say something. If you don't like the way things are going, say something. If you have a vision, a dream, a belief that deserves to be heard, say something. Because no one is coming to save you. No one is going to magically know what you need. No one is going to hand you the life you want on a silver platter. You have to claim it. You have to declare it. You have to speak it into existence. Because the moment you decide that your voice matters, the world starts to listen. Fear is the single greatest thief of power. It sneaks in, whispers doubts, and convinces you to stay small. It tells you that speaking up is dangerous, that rocking the boat will only make things worse, that if you just stay quiet long enough, things will work themselves out. But here's the truth. Fear is a liar. Fear wants you to believe that silence will keep you safe, that avoiding conflict is the best way to protect yourself, that holding back your words will somehow give you control. But what has fear really done for you? Has it ever given you peace? Has it ever made your life better? Has it ever truly protected you? Or has it only made you feel stuck? Because fear does not keep you safe. Fear keeps you trapped. Fear keeps you sitting on the sidelines, watching as life happens around you, watching as people cross your boundaries, watching as opportunities slip through your fingers, all because you were too afraid to act. Fear is the reason you stay in relationships that don't serve you. It's the reason you tolerate disrespect. It's the reason you let people take more than they give. The reason you settle for less than you deserve. The reason you hold your tongue when everything inside you is screaming to speak. And what happens when you stay silent? Nothing. Nothing changes, nothing improves, nothing shifts. Fear convinces you that silence is the easy way out. But what it doesn't tell you is that silence is also the most painful way to live. Because silence creates resentment. It builds frustration. It turns into anger, into exhaustion, into a weight you carry every single day, until one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. All because you let fear keep you quiet. And I get it. Speaking up is scary. Taking action is terrifying. The unknown feels like a risk, and risk feels like danger. But let me ask you this. What's more dangerous? Speaking up and facing a moment of discomfort, or staying silent and living a lifetime of regret? Because that's the real cost of fear. Regret. Regret for the words you didn't say. Regret for the opportunities you didn't take. Regret for the times you let someone else's voice overpower yours. Regret for the moments you could have stood up for yourself but didn't. And here's the thing. Fear is never going to disappear. It will always be there. It will always try to convince you to stay quiet, to stay small, to avoid risk. But you don't have to listen to it. Because the moment you act, fear loses its grip. The moment you speak up, fear starts to fade. The moment you stand your ground, fear starts to shrink. The moment you decide that your voice matters more than your fear, you take your power back. And the best part? Action creates momentum. The first time you speak up, your voice may shake, your hands might tremble, your heart might race. But the second time, it gets easier. The third time, even easier. And before you know it, you're not just speaking, You're commanding attention. You're setting boundaries. You're demanding respect. You're no longer waiting for someone to give you permission to be heard. You're taking it. Because confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. And the only way to build it is through action. Fear will always try to convince you that you're not ready, that you need more time, that you should wait until you feel stronger, braver, more prepared. But if you keep waiting for fear to disappear before you act, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision that fear will not control you. And the only way to prove that, take action, speak up, do the thing fear is trying to stop you from doing. Let's get one thing straight. People don't change because they wake up one day and suddenly decide to do better. They don't change because they feel bad, because they mean well, or because they have some deep moment of self-reflection out of nowhere. People change when they have to. People change when the pressure to stay the same becomes greater than the pressure to evolve. They change when they are confronted, when they feel the discomfort of their own actions, when they are forced to face the truth they've been avoiding. And if you're staying silent, if you're keeping things peaceful, if you're hoping that one day they'll just realize what they've done wrong, let me be brutally honest with you. They won't. Because why would they? If there are no consequences, if nothing is pushing them to reflect, if their life is running smoothly while you're the one suffering in silence, why would they feel the need to do anything differently? Comfort is the enemy of change. As long as someone is comfortable, they have no reason to adjust their behavior. As long as they don't feel the weight of what they've done, they have no reason to make it right. As long as there is no pushback, they will continue as they always have, because they can. Think about it. How many times have you waited for someone to change? How many times have you given someone the benefit of the doubt, convinced yourself that maybe this time will be different, only to be disappointed again? It's not because they're incapable of change, it's because they haven't felt the need to. And that's where pressure comes in. Pressure is what forces movement. It's what forces people to wake up, to take accountability, to feel the discomfort of their own actions. Without pressure, there is no urgency. Without urgency, there is no transformation. And you have more power than you think. Because pressure doesn't always come in the form of arguments or ultimatums. Sometimes pressure is simply the act of refusing to tolerate what you once accepted. Sometimes it's setting a boundary and actually enforcing it. Sometimes it's walking away and letting someone feel the weight of your absence. Sometimes the most powerful form of pressure is the realization that you are no longer available for their excuses. But pressure only works if you're willing to hold the line. If you set a boundary but don't enforce it, there is no pressure. If you say you've had enough but keep allowing the same behavior, there is no pressure. If you threaten to walk away but never do, there is no pressure. Because pressure is about consistency. It's about following through. It's about making someone feel without a shadow of a doubt that you are serious. And let me tell you something. People will test you. They will see if you really mean what you say. They will push the limits, try to wear you down, wait to see if you'll cave. And the moment you do, they'll know they don't actually have to change. Because if they can just wait out the storm, they know things will go back to normal. But when you hold the line, when you make it clear that you are not going back, that you are done with the old pattern, that the version of you who accepted less is gone, that's when things shift. That's when the pressure becomes real. That's when they have to make a choice, evolve or lose access to you. And that's when true change happens. Let's be real. When you stay silent, who does it actually help? Does it help you? Does it ease your frustration? Does it bring you peace? Does it fix the problem? No. But do you know who it does help? Them. Your silence protects the person who hurt you. It shields them from discomfort, from accountability, from having to face the reality of their actions. Your silence makes their life easier because it allows them to continue without consequence. And that's exactly why they want you to stay quiet. Think about it. Why do people get uncomfortable when you speak up? Why do they dismiss you, gaslight you, call you dramatic, tell you that you're overreacting? Because your words disrupt their comfort. Your words force them to confront what they would rather ignore. Your words put a mirror in front of them that they don't want to look into. And so they try to shut you down. Because as long as you're quiet, as long as you swallow your feelings, as long as you convince yourself that maybe it's not worth bringing up, they win. They get to continue without interruption, without accountability, without ever having to adjust their behavior. And you're left carrying the weight. You're left with the unspoken resentment, the frustration, the inner dialogue replaying what you should have said but didn't. You're left suffering in silence while they go about their life, completely unbothered. And let's be clear about something. When you don't speak up, it doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing. It just means they know you won't stop them. They know you're uncomfortable, but as long as you don't make it their problem, they don't have to care. They know they've crossed a line, but as long as you don't push back, they can keep doing it. They know you're hurting, but as long as you don't demand better, they don't have to give it. Because why would they change if they don't have to? Silence does not demand respect. It does not challenge behavior. It does not force accountability. Silence is the gift you give to the people who benefit from your pain. And the longer you stay silent, the more they learn that they can get away with it. But here's what they don't want you to know. Your voice is a disruptor. Your voice is the thing that can shake the ground beneath them. Your voice is the one thing they cannot control. Because when you speak up, you take away their power. When you say, no, I'm not okay with this, they have to deal with it. When you say, this is what I need, they have to acknowledge it. When you say, I won't tolerate this anymore, they have to make a choice. Adjust or lose access to you. And that's what they don't want. Because the moment you stop protecting them, they have to face themselves. The moment you stop holding it in, they have to deal with the reality they've been avoiding. The moment you stop making their life easy at the cost of your own, they feel it. But as long as you stay silent, they stay comfortable. Listen carefully. People learn how to treat you based on what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you let slide. Every time you stay silent when someone disrespects you, they learn that it's okay. Every time you swallow your feelings instead of expressing them, they learn that your emotions don't need to be considered. Every time you minimize your own needs to avoid conflict, they learn that their comfort matters more than your well-being. And over time, that silence becomes the standard. See, people are always watching, always testing, always learning what they can and can't get away with. Some do it consciously, some do it unconsciously, but the result is the same. If they see that you don't push back, that you don't demand respect, that you're willing to absorb mistreatment without consequence, they will take advantage of it. And I know what you might be thinking, but they should just know better. They should just respect me because that's the right thing to do. In a perfect world, maybe. But in the real world, people don't always operate on fairness. They operate on what works for them. And if treating you poorly comes with no pushback, no discomfort, no challenge, then guess what? It works for them. It's not that they don't know better, it's that they don't have to be better. Because there's no cost, no resistance, no consequence. And when there's no consequence, there's no reason to change. But here's the truth. Every interaction you have with someone is an opportunity to set the tone, to communicate what is and isn't acceptable, to establish the level of respect you require. And that communication doesn't just come from what you say, it comes from what you allow. If you let someone talk over you, they will keep doing it. If you let someone dismiss your feelings, they will keep doing it. If you let someone make you feel small, they will keep doing it. Not because they have to, but because they can. Your silence is permission. Your silence tells them that their behavior is acceptable. Your silence teaches them that your needs are negotiable. And before you know it, you're not just dealing with one instance of disrespect, you're dealing with a pattern. A pattern that you never agreed to, but also never challenged. A pattern that makes you feel unheard, unseen, undervalued, but one that continues because you haven't stopped it. And that's the part people don't realize. It's not just about the one time you let something slide. It's about the precedent it sets. Because what you accept today becomes the expectation tomorrow. But here's the good news. Just as silence teaches people to ignore your needs, your voice teaches them to respect them. When you say, I won't accept being treated this way, they learn that their behavior has limits. When you say, my feelings matter too, they learn that your emotions cannot be dismissed. When you say, this is not okay with me, they learn that your boundaries are real. Because people will only treat you as well as you demand to be treated. Not as well as you hope to be treated. Not as well as you wish to be treated. As well as you insist on being treated. And insisting doesn't come from silence, it comes from speaking up.